You ever get one of those phone calls that just guts you before your brain even wakes up? That was me first thing in the morning, standing barefoot in my kitchen with coffee in hand when my phone buzzed. Security alert from the tractor garage. First frame of the video. Muddy ATV tires, mine were spotless, so that was strike one rolling right across the concrete I'd poured myself years ago, sweating through a July heat wave. Then silhouettes my HOA neighbors, swaggering in like they owned the joint. I watched them laugh, toss their helmets up on my shelves, one even balancing a can of soda on the hood of my old tractor, my pride and joy, the only thing in that building worth more to me than my own name. And right then, this whole circus hit me, the invasion, the idiocy, and yeah, I'll admit it, the kind of slapstick comedy you only get when grown adults act like raccoons with car keys. It's funny right up until it's not. I didn't get mad, I got even. Let me back up a sec. That morning, I'm standing out on my porch, coffee steaming, listening to birds, wondering when my so-called quiet country neighborhood had turned into a parade of entitlement. Ever since the HOA board started acting like royalty, it's been a slow slide. Jay and Mara next door types, all smiles in the daylight, started treating my land like their own private playground. They'd stash their ATVs just for a minute by my fence. Garage is full, only temporary, they'd say, waving me off like I was a crossing guard. Then came the excuses. HOA says the tractor building's close enough to common land, so why not share each one dumber than the last? I stopped listening after the second round. Here's the thing. They believed that being close meant they could do whatever they wanted. Me, I believed lines are lines for a reason, and that's why we were always heading for a showdown. So I'm staring at this live camera feed, watching them plus 3 tag-alongs root through my drawers like they're shopping for souvenirs. I didn't yell, didn't storm outside, didn't even bother arguing with people who treat respect like an optional subscription. Instead, I just hit a button on my phone and heard the garage door slam shut, a sound so satisfying you'd swear it was composed by John Williams. Their faces on camera, that sudden lurch from cocky to panic was a chef's kiss. That was my cue. I locked the house, grabbed my passport, tossed a bag in the truck, and booked the next flight out of the country. Why stick around for the drama when you can let the HOA explain to the sheriff why their golden kids are locked inside a building that doesn't belong to them? Yeah, that happened. The strategy was simple. If I was home, the HOA would spin the story, blame me for escalating, probably drag me to some fake mediation. But if I skipped town, left them with no one to fight, no scapegoat to yell at, suddenly they'd be facing their own reflection for once. On the way to the airport, I imagined them arguing about who to blame, sweaty, trapped fumes from their own toys filling the place as they realize there's no exit handle, no override, just their own stupidity closing in. My phone started ringing off the hook, HOA board member first, then Mara, then Jay, then some friend trying to save face. I let it all go to voicemail. There's nothing quite like boarding a flight, and knowing you just started a fireworks show, nobody can pin on you. Mid-flight, I started to relax. Finally, really relax. I pictured the emergency HOA meeting brewing like a thunderstorm, the whole board running in circles, neighbors whispering, Jay yelling at the camera, he can't leave. All the while I'm 30,000 feet up, unavailable and feeling lighter by the mile. Touchdown in a humid, sun-blasted little beach town halfway around the world. Checked into a cheap hotel, bare walls, ocean view. One wobbly fan opened my phone and found a mountain of missed calls. Jay howling about being illegally imprisoned, Mara insisting I return, and the board members still monologuing about community standards like he was auditioning for Law and Order HOA unit. I ignored them, scrolled the security footage, and watched them trying to jimmy the door with a shovel. Turns out, reinforced steel laughs at panic. But here's where it gets good. The real comedy wasn't watching them fumble with the lock. It was seeing all the HOA folks gathered outside, side-eyeing each other, whispering, scrambling to figure out who had stepped in it deepest. It was chaos, but the fun kind, the kind where you're not the punchline for once. A couple hours later, I get a text from Harris, the only neighbor I actually liked. Old guy, wicked sense of humor. He tells me the sheriff showed up, checked the property lines, and flat out told the HOA, sorry folks, if you break into someone's locked garage and get stuck, that's on you. If they tried to force the door, it'd be criminal damage caught on camera, no less. I laughed so hard in the middle of a crowded market, people started looking at me like I was a street performer. Later that evening, I tuned into the live camera just in time for the emergency HOA meeting. Pop-up tent folding chairs, half the board sweating bullets while Jay ranted and Mara whined about compromise. which is hilarious considering she'd never compromised on anything in her life unless it benefited her. The board split right down the middle. Some blamed Jay and Mara, some tried to pin it on me for leaving the country, and one guy even suggested they pretend it never happened. That's when Jay lost it, yelling about his ATVs and his reputation. I nearly spilled my drink. Now, if you think they learned their lesson, you don't know HOAs. These folks double down before they ever admit fault. Harris texts me the next morning. Now they want to fine me for reckless absenteeism, whatever that means, or maybe community endangerment. I'm thousands of miles away sipping coffee, and for the first time since I bought this place, I feel like I have the upper hand. Twist Time HOA sends code enforcement to my property. This guy in a city polo walks the perimeter measuring snapping pics, scribbling on a clipboard. Too bad for him, I built that garage myself, every bolt, every board, all up to code. The HOA president shows up hoping to catch me with some violation, but ends up arguing with the inspector, who just shrugs and points at the deed marker. That's when I realized these people weren't just entitled, they were desperate. They had nothing left but petty tactics, and even those were backfiring. I spent my days exploring, answering neighbor updates, collecting receipts, and quietly building a case. Financial records, suspicious charges, family members on contracts, bogus maintenance fees, all the things that had pissed off the whole street for years. You want cinematic. Here's your scene. Jay and Mara, escorted by sheriff's deputies, forced to haul their stuff out of my garage boxes, stacked egos, bruised deputies ignoring every complaint. Meanwhile, the board's melting down in public. One faction wants to apologize, the other wants to stand firm, and Harris is sending me blow-by-blow updates like it's play-by-play on game day. Then comes the real crack. County auditors roll up in a black SUV, paperwork in hand. Neighbors gather, the board scrambles, and within minutes the auditors are digging through files, asking questions nobody wants to answer. One board member breaks down crying. Another tries to sneak out documents, gets caught. The president starts sweating through his shirt, stammering about protocol. That's when the residents gather out front demanding answers, holding up their own spreadsheets and receipts. And I'm sitting in a hotel eating fresh fruit, smiling for the first time in months. By the end of the week, the HOA sends out one last email full of bluster, accusing me of causing community unrest by get this traveling without permission. Neighbors forward it to me with a bunch of laughing emojis. Even the most timid residents start pushing back, talking at mailboxes, at the pool, everywhere. Someone calls for a vote to dissolve the board and replace it with a temporary committee. And as all this is happening, I'm on my balcony finalizing a thick, clear, bulletproof report. Every piece of evidence, every violation, every sham contract cross-referenced and laid bare. I fly home with the evidence in my bag and a sense of closure in my chest. Pull into the neighborhood and folks are out on the sidewalk waving, not just being polite, but grateful. Harris meets me, quick handshake, tells me the emergency meeting is in an hour, and everyone's showing up. The president looks like he's about to melt. Inside the clubhouse, you could slice the tension with a butter knife. The president starts in rambling about unity and misinformation, but the room is done with him. When I walk in, people actually cheer. I step up, open the report, and lay it all out. Security footage, financial fraud, favoritism, emails, every last trick in their book. Auditors back me up. The board starts falling apart. Treasurer resigns. Other members follow. And finally, with the room in an uproar, the president throws his notes and storms out, the last echo of his little reign of terror. Neighbors gather around, shaking my hand, apologizing for not speaking up sooner. It's not triumph, I feel, just relief. That night, walking home under a quiet sky, I realize how small it all started, a couple of muddy tires in my garage. But it was never about the garage, not really. It was about standing up when you're pushed, and about finally drawing a line that nobody can cross. The next morning, things feel different. Lighter. The old fears gone, replaced by hope, maybe even trust. Open elections are scheduled, auditors still working, but now the neighborhood belongs to us again. I lock the garage not out of fear, just out of habit, knowing no one's coming for it now. And as the sun rises, I can't help but wonder how many neighborhoods could change if just one person said no more. So tell me, what would you have done? Where's the line between standing up and stirring up trouble? Is justice just holding the door, or is it sometimes slamming it shut? Drop your thoughts below. I've got a feeling this isn't the only story out there.